as we get along, we'll make our presence felt. Thank you again.
So, General, how are you?
I am good. Every day is a good day, like we say. So generally, I am good. Once my troops are happy, satisfied, I'm a happy man. I'm good.
Welcome once more.
Thank you.
Kindly tell our listening audience who is Brigadier General Davison Fayafole.
General Fole comes from a very humble background. I'm a Christian. I grew up in a little place called Town, right under the university. But interestingly, I went to school, the Moravia Central High School, somewhere in 1989. I graduated. Then I found myself at the University of Liberia, where I graduated with the golden class. Not too long, I thought it was very important right after the Civil War, when the entire fabric of our society was broken and the military was disbanded. That's the defunct AFL. So I thought that I could form part of the first class. So it was at that point in 2006, to be precise, in July, that I found myself at the Barclay Training Center and I got enlisted with great men, speaking of the legs of Daniel Ziankan, Prince Johnson, Ma'am Geraldine George, to Phyllis Dana, and the rest of the others. So we got enlisted and we went through, we were private soldiers. We were indeed soldiers. We got promoted to rank of sergeants, and not too long because it was a kind of accelerated promotion because we were forming a new army. Then those of us that had a college background and college degree became officers. And I happens to be one of those who were among the first batch of officers. We were like 13 officers. And today we went through the rank and file of all of these ranks, ranking from a captain to the major, lieutenant colonel, or Fulbright colonel. And today I found myself sitting here as the chief of staff, carrying the rank of a brigadier general. So if I may just stop right here, that's the man, General Davison Fole, a family man, married to beautiful Mrs. Anisha Fole, and I got 3 children. Ivan, he's a lawyer, and I got 2 girls, Ivana and Sammy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I'm Major Eldorado Yantijebo, and I'm co-presenting this show with Major Stephen Todd Tapler. Every leader has a mission and a vision that drive institutional success, and I believe you are no exception. Tell us about your mission and vision for the AFL, and how do you intend to achieve them?
Thank you, Major Jebo. Indeed, every leader must have a vision and a mission. And the vision is simple. My vision for the armed forces of Liberia is to shape a well-trained military force that is characterized by the highest standard of discipline, professionalism, and troop warfare, while forging robust partnership with foreign and national security partners to enhance Liberia's defense capability and promote global peace and stability. That is my vision. And my mission for the armed forces of Liberia is to develop resilience and professional force through effective guidance, streamlined logistic, and enhanced troop warfare, nurturing a disciplined and motivated force capable of fulfilling national and international duties and maintaining a positive image as a force for good. So those are my vision and my mission.
Thank you so much, sir. So let me take you to the next question, and it's about morale. Morale, because we usually hear soldiers morale high, morale high. So, morale is crucial to the success of any institution. For the AFL, morale enhances soldiers' enthusiasm, confidence, and most importantly, loyalty. My concern is, how is the morale of the AFL?
That is a very interesting question, Major Tapla. Morale is relative. But speaking in my capacity as Chief of Staff for the Armed Forces of Liberia, I can tell you that the morale of my men is very satisfactory. And I say that because I do not want to say that the morale is at the highest peak, because in every organization, you will understand there will be challenges. But again, we need to work with these challenges to mitigate those things that will reduce further our morale. So as we speak right now, the morale of the military is satisfactory. And the reason I say that is because one of the factors or forces that really drew the morale or grew the morale of the military was our most recent deployment in Mali. As you are aware, the Armed Forces of Liberia was deployed in that peacekeeping environment for the period of 8 years. Interestingly, when you are deployed in this environment, like myself, I was deployed there, and I spent just a year where I served as a chief of personnel. You get a lot of money paid by the United Nations because of the services that you render to the international community. So that was the highest point of a morale in our military, the peacekeeping mission in Mali. But just besides that, morale, just by being a member of the military, just by being a uniformed man, that's a morale all by itself. Because people will always refer to you as a first-class citizen. So you will understand that most of our soldiers move with morale, and that's why we say that GR morale is high, it never gets old. So speaking of morale, there are a lot of factors. Sometimes the morale dwindles. Sometimes it go up, sometimes it come down a little bit. But we can tell you that with the present administration and from what we gathering from our executives with the support of the legislature, the morale in the military would definitely be high. Thank you.
So, thank you, sir. So, your opening statement on morale was, quote unquote, morale is relative. So, you spoke well on variety of issues that bring morale to the institution. But could you, or would you like to tell us how do you intend to maintain morale in the AFL with specific touch on strength, promotion, salary, accommodation, and logistics?
Thank you, Major Eldorado Jebo, for that interesting question. Let me start with the strength of the military. You know, every military around the world will do what we call the fourth generation. And there are times where we have the attrition rate in the military. Sometimes these numbers fall down, below the benchmark. We run a brigade size of the military. And anybody who wants to send a brigade size will know exactly what we're talking about. Today, we're just about a brigade minus. That in itself brings down the morale. But however, there are indicators that the morale will definitely go up because we are working presently towards bringing that number up and increasing our fourth generation. As we speak to you today, speaking of this trend, our Deputy Chief of Staff, Colonel Dana, has convened a meeting to see how we can start the recruitment process. That will not be this year, next year, but in the military, we usually do prior planning. So this planning are ongoing right now. We have our EATT mentors together with our G7 and the training commandant working on the plans to see how we can foster the strength of the military by early next year. That means that there will be recruitment. And we intend to do 2 recruitment yearly, back to back. At least we try to formulate what we call the box of individuals. So when we open the pool up and we have a considerable number of maybe 600, we can take 500 from there. So we can tell you that that morale of strength would definitely be met. Speaking of promotion in every military is a matter of must. And it's based on the time and grade in service. All of us came to this military. I came as a private soldier. And I went through the rank and file, became a sergeant, and I was a captain, a lieutenant. And I grew up to be a lieutenant colonel. So those that come in after us will definitely go through the same process. As we're speaking to you, we just submitted a list to the Ministry of Finance. and for promotion. And those that will be promoted, it comes along with salary increment. And we are all aware that there may be some challenges in the envelope of the government. But again, the government is very keen and look towards the promotion. And the Minister of Finance is working on it. So those that will be promoted would have definitely salary increment that commensurate with their promotion. Then you talk about, what's the next one you talk about?
Accommodation.
Accommodation and what?
Logistics.
And logistic. Let me speak on accommodation. That is one of the factors that brings about the morale problem in the military. Some times ago, you heard that the wives of soldiers were agitating for more support to the military, and accommodation happens to be one of those things that brought about that whole halabaloo. Today, we are proud to inform the general public that the government has remitted or is working towards it. An amount of $1.8 million has been set aside to start the process of the decongestion, because it is no secret that at the level of the armed forces of Liberia, especially in Edward B. Kesari, the issue of the housing is very poor. We had our legislature who visited there, Senator Momo Saras and his team, and indeed, they saw that indeed it was a problem, and that these women did not just get in the street because they felt like getting in the street. That was wrong. That's something that I condemn as a chief of staff. But then I was in the making, but that was not the way to go. But they had a very good point to strike. Probably they could take another way of doing it, but they took the wrong way. But today, let's call that bygone. Let it go. Let's sleep indoor light. So we are working on it. Presently, this is our plan. We try to open up few barracks around. Camp Grant. Camp Grant is in Sannicolay County. In Nima. Sannicolay is in Nima County. Camp Grant is seriously being considered. We are trying to open Camp Grant in Sannicolay. We are trying to open Camp Jones in Kakata. We got a platoon size accommodation in Kakata, Camp Jones. A lot of people don't know this. We have Camp Jackson. That's in Nama. 3 months ago, I was in Nama. In Bon County, that's a big barracks that takes about a battalion. That's huge. We have in Zedru, Camp Wessina also. So you see that we have a lot of buildings all around the country, but the military is just being subjected to more warfare. So under our administration, we will do everything possible to decentralize the military. General Johnson started on a very good footing. In fact, it started with General Ziankan, and General Johnson came in, and there is a blueprint, but we are here to implement that blueprint. So as we speak to you, our engineers are working with our logistic team. By the way, companies that are interested have put up a bid, and I understand that 1 or 2 companies won the bid. So the issue of decongestion is on the way. Camp EBK would be decongested, where at least each personnel, speaking of the lowest class, will have a self-contained accommodation and will not be sharing apartment. So that goes towards accommodation. Speaking of logistic in every military is the driving force. A military that don't have a logistic is not ready to be operational. We are challenged. There is no secret. Since the Chinese donated to us these equipment sometimes in 2014, since that time, I'm not sure we have received any major equipment. These logistics brought the armed forces of Liberia to a way far, above the periphery, where we were engaged in road construction, as you are aware. We were doing both horizontal and vertical, constructions, because we had the equipment and we are capable. We have the ability to do these things. But as we speak right now, that is one of the morale factor that we are engaged with, and we are talking with the government. And Mr. President has given us his word that it is just about time. In a very short time, he will do everything possible in his purview to ensure that the military is back on its footing when it comes to logistics. And speaking of logistic, as you are aware, I used to work in the African Union, where I served as a defense attaché for 4 years. During my stay in Ethiopia, we made a case. When we chaired the military staff committee of the Peace and Security Council, sometimes in 2018, we made a visit to Cameroon, where we had a continental logistic base. At this continental logistic base, the African Union got a stockpile of equipment, huge stockpile of equipment, over $170 some more million. And these equipments were just sitting right there. And I made a case because I knew my country. By then, I was a DA. And I spoke to the Commissioner of Peace and Security. By then, he was the ambassador, but now he's the Commissioner of Peace and Security, Bangoli. I said, Ambassador, don't you think that some of our countries need these equipment because they've been here forever? And he said, that's a good point, but the bureaucracy in the African Union is too much. And indeed it is. I can tell you, Major Stephen Tortabla, interestingly, a few days ago, I was right back there at the African Union. This time in my capacity as Chief of Staff at the STCDSS, that's the Specialized Committee on Security and Defense. These meetings come up once a year, and I was now represented as a Chief of Staff, but then I was the DA. I raised the issue again. I'm pleased to inform you and my Liberian people that we attracted a huge investment. We can tell you that it is not completed yet, but the negotiations are ongoing, that the AFL will benefit from $7 to $10 million worth of equipment from the African Union. It is not final yet, but the Minister of Foreign Affairs is working on it, and I am behind the scene. So speaking of logistics, that's where we are. Let me stop here now and probably take some more other questions.
Wow, so many welcoming information. This is good, and that is why the armed forces today, a force for good, is actually important to bring the AFL closer to the public. We talk about plans on the way for every soldier to have his own or her own apartment. You also spoke of about $7 to $10 million worth of equipment, plans on the way also. But when you spoke about morale, you mentioned peacekeeping. So it reminds me of the closure of the Malian peacekeeping mission. Are there plans for future peacekeeping missions?
You know, peacekeeping all around the world happens to be the baby of every military. You go to Bangladesh today, they survive with peacekeeping. You go to India, they are in peacekeeping. Nepal, they are in peacekeeping. Ghana, Nigeria, and all of our neighbors. And that is the biggest motivation, like I earlier said in my opening statement. I was just in Abuja attending the Chief of Defense Staff meeting for ECOWAS. And you know, the chairman is General Musa from Nigeria. He's our chairman. And we had a very successful meeting. I can tell you that the ECOWAS is not sitting, very robust under his leadership. In that meeting, we agreed and we came up with a lot of resolution, and it was passed and adopted. We have agreed as Chief of Staff of ECOWAS to activate the African Standby Force in Sierra Leone. As you are aware, that Sierra Leone is our next door neighbor. Looking at the threat that comes down from the Sahel coming to the Gulf of Guinea, it is no doubt, no question that we as Africans in the Gulf of Guinea shouldn't be prepared. There are a lot of interference. There are a lot of outside interference from big powers, probably try to hold ground or gain a foothold in this small Sahel region. So we have agreed and adopted that the African Standby Force will be enforced, and it will be in Sierra Leone. At that point in that meeting, I pledged a platoon size. You know, Liberia has a very small number in terms of our force generation. Like I started, we need to do more recruitment. In Mali, we had a company size of about 150. We were having a lot of challenges. But the reason we were very successful is because our men were trained. So even as chief of personnel in that mission myself, I knew that Liberia was on a very good footing, because every commander, including the last commander, said indeed that Liberia had a very good force. And at that mission, we got what we call the Force Commander Commendation Award. Our country got that award. And by the way, myself sitting here as Chief of Personnel, I also got the Force Commander Commendation Award for outstanding performance at the headquarters of MINUSMA. And a lot of our other folks got that award. So it tells you that Liberia may have a small force, but we are very robust. And the level of education that we have acquired from the great United States, from China, from Nigeria, from all over the world, including Egypt. So those, education that we have acquired has brought to us something really good. So I can tell you that the African Standby Force in Sierra Leone will be activated. We are pledged a platoon size. So we will now put our men together, let them be in the state and ready to deploy in the short distant future. But most besides that, we also have what we call the counter-terrorism unit that will also be activated, and that would be for ECOWAS nations. So in the event where, as you are aware, the terroristic attack in Africa is something that we cannot underestimate. So Africa, I'm speaking about the regional mechanism, ECOWAS coming down to Minor River Union, doing the possible best to ensure that we have a standby force and we have a counter-terrorism unit. And at that point, Liberia will have to pledge troops like we did in the African Standby Force. We will also pledge troops to the counter-terrorism unit. That will bring about motivation to our soldiers where they go and perform. Thank you.
If you are just joining us, we would like to inform you that you are listening to Armed Forces Today and Force for Good. Today, we are in conversation with Brigadier General Davison Fire Fuller, Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of Liberia. Please stay tuned as we take a short break and be right back. Hey,
This is the way I wanted to be, oh, this is the way I wanted to be. This is the way I wanted to be, oh, this is the way I wanted to be. Hey, I wanna be a soldier. Hey, I wanna be a rugged. Hey, I wanna be a soldier. This is the way I wanted to be. Oh, Jabe, hey, oh, Jabe, hey, oh, Jabe, hey, Mura, hi, Mura, hi, Mura, hi, Mura, hi, Mura, hi. Oh, Mimi Coco, oh, Mimi Coco, oh, Mimi Coco, Laberi, oh, Mimi Coco, Bakasi, oh, Mimi Coco, Siriali, oh, Mimi Coco,
Welcome back as the Chief of Staff takes the next question. Sir, speaking to mandate and capacity of the Armed Forces of Liberia, the National Defense Act of 2008 mandates the Armed Forces of Liberia to operate 3 branches, namely the Army, the Coast Guard, and the Air Wing. Sir, are these 3 branches operational?
Thank you, Major Jebo. As you are aware, Armed Forces being a force for good. The Army is very operational, as you are aware. We also have the Liberian Coast Guard. As we speak presently, we have these 2 services very operational and active. That's the Army and the Liberian Coast Guard. Speaking of the Air Wing, before the war, Liberia used to have a very active Air Wing. But due to the war and our inability to reach to that level, which is not in our purview, we have made series of recommendations to the executive, to the legislature. They are the the engine behind the military. They are like the board of directors, the legislature. So we have requested that they see reason that we activate the air wing. But again, to activate the air wing, it means that you need pilots. Of most reason, we had two pilots, both of which were trained in Nigeria. Unfortunately, one of them left. He got separated, and I understand he's somewhere in the state doing a private flight flying. But we still have one who just went to the UN to contribute as well. So it is our hope and aspiration that the air wing will be activated in the shortest possible time under our administration. But for the Army and the Coast Guard, I can tell you positively that we are making a lot of gains. Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. Like I said, a lot of good news for the AFL, a lot of good news for the Liberian people. But let's look at veteran, the Bureau of Veteran Affairs. We are aware that no matter how long it takes, all of us wearing this uniform will age or in some time become incapacitated, and we have to become a veteran. So what is the relationship between the AFL and the Bureau of Veterans?
That is a very smart question because the Bureau of Veteran is dear to my heart. By the way, when I took over in February as the newest chief of staff around, the new sheriff in town, I heard a lot of noise emanating from the Veteran Bureau, and at which I decided to talk to them. So I convened a meeting in the chief of staff conference room, and when I saw these veterans, I was amazed. I was really happy and motivated because they were very motivated. These people behave as if they were still active duty military personnel. And that is where my motivation comes from. We had a very good meeting. By the way, by way of information, the Minister of National Defense, Ma'am Geraldine Gina George, Brigadier General retired, is the chairman on the board of Veteran Affairs. And the chief of staff, that's myself, happens to be a member of that board. And we have the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and few other ministries are members of the board. The veteran is really dear to our heart, and we are doing everything possible. I spoke with Madam Minister, and she is now planning to convene a meeting. The reason it had to take this long to bring the veteran on board to come up with the director and the leadership of the veteran is because we did not have a full leadership at the Ministry of National Defense. We only had Ma'am Geraldine George serving as an acting minister, so it was really difficult. So now that you have Minister Lamy, the DMA, the DMO, and all the AMAs and AMOs at the Ministry of Defense, I can tell you that the issue of the veteran would be seriously considered. Their leadership structure will be put in place. By the way, I raised the issue the other day in one of our major meetings with the Commander-in-Chief, and we told him that we are looking positively towards that side. The reason that the veterans are very important, and I can tell you, these are our reservists. Exactly. These are our reservists, and we must hold that high. Because if anything gets wrong today, tomorrow, just with this number that we have, I can tell you that we would have these veterans at our back, fighting for Mama Liberia. So we have a very good relationship. The nexus between the veteran and the active AFL cannot be divided. Very strong. Thank you.
So, speaking to veterans, do you sometimes think of what you yourself will become after your active duty? Because the likes of General Ziankan, General George, and General Princey Johnson retire are now all veterans. And these just mentioned are your classmates. And two of them serve in the same exact position you are now serving.
You know, Major Jebo, that's an interesting question. It is often said that when the dry leaves are falling, you the young leaf, you got to look at. Then I told my soldiers the other day, I said, you know, when the hunchback man is dead and he's going to be buried, you better look and see how they're going to lay him in our grave. You know, being a veteran is not a curse. It comes with age and it comes with accomplishment. I would like to become a veteran one day. And it's simple. Today, we have veteran Daniel Ziankan. The man is well respected. We have veteran Prince Johnson. We have veteran Geraldine George. These people move with high level of morale. And that's what we're talking about. When you serve your nation with distinction, with honor, with delicacy, and you are retired. The only issue that we speak of right now, our veteran that have just retired, yes, they've been retired, did not receive pension retirement. They will receive it because we got a word from the executive. They will receive it, but our envelopes are tight. That's why they will say for now, and we understand that. But I pray to become a veteran one day, and a veteran is somebody that we can rely on. Today, I sit down, and if I'm caught between a decision-making process, guess what? I call General Ziankan. I call General Johnson, who is just close to me. And General Johnson calls me, Defoe, he calls me. What's going on? What am I hearing? How can we face this? How can we mitigate this? General George, a veteran, but happens to be my immediate boss. So you see that we have a very good relationship, though they are veteran today. And just besides the three I'm talking about, I'm speaking about the veteran before the Samuel Doe era. These people still come to my office. You're talking about Johnson, the former deputy chief of staff, Aaron Johnson, and Colonel Willie Nangwe. These are veterans. These are original veterans from the Samuel Doe era. These are people that went to Fort Benning, Georgia. When we were kids, we were not even in the military. We stay talking to these people because they come with a lot of experience and knowledge and advice to give to us. We depend on them. Our veterans are our hearts. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You just jumped the boat because that was my next question for you, and you answered it so excellently. But there are many, many questions, so I'll move to the next one. The morale of the AFL is very high all over the place, and the AFL is considered one of the most, if not the most disciplined and credible institutions in Liberia. How was this outstanding credibility achieved?
Major Tabla, it comes with a lot. Military all over the world are noted for the high level of professionalism. The AFL, since 2006, when we got recruited, went through what we call the boot camp. In our classrooms, we went to school to become part of this military. We were not just recruited and went to the shooting range. We sat in class. We were taught civics. We were taught history. We were taught discipline. And in our school, one of those subjects that were very important to us was the Army Corps value.
Yes, sir.
There are 7 Army Corps values, if I may just name a few. One of them is discipline. You're talking about respect. You're talking about integrity. You're talking about being dutiful. You're talking about loyalty. You're talking about personal courage. When you have the Army Corps value as a soldier, there are times that you will make mistakes. Mistakes are allowed. But when you make mistake, definitely you get to know that you made a mistake. Today, I came across a very senior NCO who was in class with me when we got enlisted. And he went through something that he shouldn't have done. And I called him to my office because I have explicit respect for this young man. And I asked him, why did you do what you did? Guess what? He told me, sir, I screwed up. And I messed it and I jacked the drill. He knew exactly. He had the conscience that what he did was wrong. So today, the military is being, put on that skill as being very professional in terms of discipline. It's only because of those Army Corps value that we upheld to. Discipline. If you are not disciplined, you will have the consequences. I was reprimanded myself. General Ziankan was the first to be reprimanded. The man was a very strong man among us, young people coming together, and he did something. He was not promoted to the rank of first lieutenant with us. He was denied. He was put to jail. General Prince Johnson, the same. While we were in the process of becoming officers, and General Johnson had an issue. Not too bad of an issue, but these white people were teaching us discipline. These Ghanaians, these Nigerians, Nigeria offer leadership to us. And the U.S. government pumped in millions of dollars to train us. Why the Ghanaians and the Nigerians are giving us leadership? General Johnson was put to jail. And we were all sorry at the time. Why did they put him to jail? He did not do that much. But he jacked it up himself. Interestingly, my friend and brother Jueto, who was also with us, but he now left the army, misbehaved. And he was very close to me. By the time they're locking up, I'm like, that's not going to happen to me. What the hell? Excuse my English. Why did they put him to jail? He did nothing wrong. 1 week later, I jack it up myself. And Major Savage would say, look, Lieutenant Follett, confirm yourself. And MPs were all around me. I had to go to the mess for 1 week without taking shower. And the mess is the jail for the officers. I was there. So we all had our own issue. We go through disciplinary something. But the Army core value is what holds us. When you jack it up, when you get it wrong, you get it right the next time. Your inability to get it right the next time or to repeat the wrong tells us that you are not disciplined. And that's why, since we took over 7 months ago, we have separated, discharged 5 personnel of the armed forces of Liberia because of disciplinary issue. These people want to bring our noble institution to disrepute and not honor our watch. We expelled them from the military. Some were involved with drugs, a lot of them, 4 of them. Narcotics. It's a no-go. Zero tolerance. And General Johnson has set the benchmark. Zero tolerance on drugs. When we catch you with drugs, no matter what kind of drugs it is, we're not going to go around people looking for people to grab and say, come down, do your test. But when you misbehave and we grab you, the first thing we do, we run your drugs test. So 4 of these personnel were formed with narcotic drugs.
And we are talking about those illegal drugs.
Illegal drugs, not drugs of substance. I mean illegal drugs.
Thank you, sir.
Illegal drugs. You're talking about opium. You're talking about kush, heroin. These are substance drugs that we found in the system of our personnel, and because they have committed other crimes. So for the good of the service in the National Defense Act, that's 7.7, we discharge them. You have a personnel who goes around taking money from people under the pretense that he's a big businessman while he's in the military. You're talking about $120,000. How did he convert this money from these people? We can't keep this kind of man where our soldiers come from Mali with some money to build their homes and somebody comes and tell them stories and stories. I don't know how to pray to that and invested in the fellow personnel that he's going to make some business with keke, as they call it, tricycle, and turn money around and deposit to your account. And I don't know. I thought soldiers were very smart, and some officers are even involved. This man collected money over $100,000 from these people. Now he brought the military to disrepute, to the lowest standard, not under my watch. I discharged the man. The man was immediately discharged and turned over to the civilian authority. The soldiers can go there and get their money. So that's why we're talking about discipline in the military. It's honor my vision and my mission.
Thank you, sir, for speaking so elaborately on the issue of discipline. We know that discipline is one of the hallmarks and one of the fundamentals of our core values. Speaking to AFL as a fighting force, sir, a lot of people believe that the military is just a fighting force. We don't know anything besides using the gun, going to war, engaging in violence and warfare. Sir, do you want to use this platform to tell us what other activities besides the military being a fighting force that the military engages in?
Thank you, Major Jebo, for that very relevant question. The armed forces of Liberia being a force for good, that phrase was not just crafted because we felt like we would do that. Military, like military all around the world, are not just involved with direct military operations. You know, the AFL you see today since 2006 have been involved with a lot. I want to bring you back during the dirty Ebola virus disease in this nation. The armed forces of Liberia was one unit that was up ready, and we went all over the country. We try our best to quarantine communities, something that was very risky, something that claimed the life of about 8 of our personnel and would have even done more. But because of our resilience, because we were focused and we are citizen soldiers. So while our colleagues were dying, we were stay there. Quarantine centers. I remember in West Point, where myself went later on when the late Shaki was shot, through that struggle and because we had a mission to quarantine West Point because West Point was infected by the virus. So we took a lot of risks in the Ebola virus disease. It came to the corona as well. We were involved with this corona fight as well. But just most besides that, we have the 14th Military Hospital that is providing services to our people, our population, and that hospital seems to be one of the referral hospitals today. The 14th Military Hospital have very good staff. We have Dr. Clark. She's doing a remarkable job with other doctors, medical doctors, and our own AFL. These are all personnel of the Armed Forces of Liberia. They are doing a great job, and today our government officials and people travel from all of Monrovia, all of Liberia, come to Liberia, and they prefer the 14th Military Hospital because of the standard of treatment that they get to the 14th Military Hospital. I bring you back to our engineer unit. One of the unit that is very robust is the engineers. When we got these equipments, and that's why we try to prevail on government to see reasons to give us more equipment. We, as a government, we have a very trained engineer unit. The government will not pay all these monies to contractors or foreign companies to come and build our roads. We have the ability to do them. I can tell you that we did a lot of feeder roads. I remember when I was chief of operations, we were doing road in Bomkante, we were doing road in Bapolo, where the late Daniel the 10 was. I was chief of operations by then. We opened that road in Bapolo. We did the road right to Invisible Park, the south wall. You saw that. And that is one of the best south walls. It's not breaking apart. The junction. We did some intervention there. In the southeast, along those places during the terrible rainy seasons, we were there. Lofa County, we went as far as Yigbedu, Mendecoman, and all along that under the leadership of Daniel Zankan and Minister Samukai at the time. So we have a force that can do just more than war. Military operations other than war, we call it. We have the LCG, the Liberian Coast Guard, very operational. As you are aware that the maritime security in the Gulf of Guinea is on a serious threat. You have high level of transshipment. You have drugs, trafficking. And these guys are just moving into our waters. Have we not had the Liberian Coast Guard patrolling our waters 24/7 with the limited logistic that they have? Liberia would become a dump site like some other countries around here. But the Liberian National Coast Guard is doing extremely well. For your information, quite recently, we rescued 2 Chinese vessels. When we got information from our counterpart in Sierra Leone, we got the state partnership program with Sierra Leone that there was a vessel and the Paris had seized 2 Chinese vessels with 28 people on those vessels. We got the information, and at once the commander, under the leadership of Colonel Willie, and his operation council, took one of our boats, deployed men on those boats, and ran after those pirates. We got them, and we rescued these 2 boats, and there was a big story around here. So it's very good that we bring in some of these things so that the most recent flooding in Johnsonville and around Liberia. You are aware that the military was involved because the whole of Johnsonville was flooded up. So we had to bring our Zodiac boats to rescue our people so we can do more other than war. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. A lot of information, but we can say to the Liberian people that we are running out of time. So let's go very straight and be brief with our answer, sir. Pension, very important. We all know that we are aging. One of these days, we have to retire. What can you say about the pension scheme for the AFL? Is there any pension scheme in existence?
You know, like General Johnson would say, and he's very emphatic about it. He say one of the challenges that I really had is that I did not succeed in crafting the pension scheme for the military. The general did his best. We did a framework, we did the paperwork, but it was never actualized. And it is not because the general did not want it to actualize. He did a great job, but the documents were stuck somewhere in the former legislature, the Ministry of Finance, and it never went further. Under our leadership, I can tell you, and to my Liberian population listening, our military men and women in arms, under our leadership, we have attracted some amount of money already in the pension scheme. As we speak, under this new budget, we have some amount of money, if I don't be exact, about $125,000 to $150,000 deposit in our pension benefit, and that is the first time, very unprecedented. So we have that money sitting, and that money is be put in our escrow account. Nobody want to touch it until the period of 3 years because our people are aging, and as they are aging, take for example the band unit, they are old. We have people 65, people going to 70. They should be in active service, but you cannot let them go because you don't have money to give them. In the next 7 to 8 years, myself, I will be retiring. General Ziankan, General Johnson, and General George left without pension benefit, but it is there. So we are doing everything possible. In the next 3 years, we will have the benefit given to our soldiers. So we have the pension and gratuity scheme. We submitted it to the government, and they have accepted it, and they will deposit this money. So the next 3 years, our soldiers will be retired with some amount of money, and they will be taking some percentage of their salary while they are giving a bulk money. That's what we call gratuity on the spot before they leave.
Yes, sir. As we close up, we just have to combine a lot of things. So just look, let's put three into one. What are some of the achievements, challenges, and your parting comments, please?
Some of my achievements, let me just start with the very pension you talk about. This is the first time that we have some money in AFS account, escrow account, where we will have our soldiers, personnel who will be retired, will be given some money the next 3 years. It is under our administration. And just most besides that, we have attracted a huge logistic. It has not been made available yet, but we have got word that 7 to 10 million worth of equipment from the African Union, where I work myself, and based on the social capital and that rapprochement that I built with the commissioner and the other folks at the African Union, and with the help of the foreign minister, we will attract a huge amount of equipment. So speaking of some of those breaks that we did, that's just few of it. And we are looking forward to more achievement. But the challenges are even more, So in the wake of these achievements, we have a lot of challenges in terms of decongestion, which is very paramount, low salary for the military. It's very important. You have a military making $200, that's a really small amount of money. So we are talking to the executive and the legislature to see reason to step out the military salary to at least a minimum amount. They can be done geometrically and not on the spot, little by little, like Madam Ellen Johnson did, until we saw it ourselves. Our lieutenant was making $400 from $200. So these are some of the challenges. Mobility. We do not have mobility. The mobility is too low. Mobile. You, as a public affairs officer, had to be using your own POV to come here to grant this interview. That's wrong. That's a no-go. So these are some of the challenges we're facing, but I can tell you that under the leadership of His Excellency, the Commander-in-Chief, and with the level of senators and representatives like Musa Belete and Honorable Gisi, whom we have in that frequent discussion with, something will be done in terms of the motivation and the logistic with the salary to be exact also. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, folks in Radio Land, I know you want us to continue going, but we are out of time totally. And so we got nothing to do but to just say a big thank you to the Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of Liberia, Brigadier General Davison Fayafale, who has spoken so well. We have been your presenter, Major Stephen Tortapla.
And Major Eldorado Yanti Jebo.
Join us next week, Monday, for a new edition of Armed Forces Today, A Force for Good. Thank you. gives an in-depth analysis of activities